Good evening, everyone. Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, October 29th, 2019, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business to come properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, October 24th, 2019, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Dana, may we have a roll call?
Mike Beelan. Kent Diamond.
Here.
Brendan Gallion.
Here.
Robert Garrison. Brian Morrissey.
Here.
Gretchen Olig.
Here.
Tara Porto.
Here.
Peggy Oster.
Here.
Amy Root.
Here.
Okay. Brian, would you like to lead us in a flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements. Tara, do you have any?
I have two. The Westfield High School Department of Counseling Services will host more than 160 colleges, universities, and other post-secondary institutions from around the country at its annual college night on Thursday, November 14th, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. The event provides an excellent opportunity for students and parents to talk one-on-one with college representatives and to gather information about their schools. A list of attending schools along with room assignments will be finalized as the event nears and will be posted on the Counseling Department's webpage at whs.westfieldnjk12.org. Mental health and wellness is an important focus of a new speaker series at Edison Intermediate School, sponsored by the Edison Guidance Team, school nurses, and the school resource officer, and other educators. The 4 presentations will be held on November 18th, January 23rd, February 11th, and March 10th. Each presentation begins at 7 p.m. in the Edison Auditorium and is open to the public at no cost. Visit the district website at www.westfieldnjk12.org for a list of speakers under the recent news section.
Thank you. Brendan.
Yep. I have 2 announcements as well. Congratulations to art teachers Becky Davenport and Amy Hines, who represent Westfield Public Schools at the annual conference of art educators of New Jersey. Ms. Davenport teaches at Franklin, and Ms. Hines teaches at both Lincoln and Franklin. The 2 art educators presented a workshop on paper weaving for their elementary school colleagues. Ms. Davenport reported that it was, quote, wonderful to have so many art educators from across the state attend the presentation and share their thoughts. The Westfield Municipal Alliance and Westfield High School Dream Team announced the 7th annual anti-drug, alcohol, poster, poetry, and public service announcement palooza. The students in grades 1 through 5 are invited to create an original poster, while students in grades 6 through 8 may create an original poem with the theme Westfield. We have better things to do, healthy choices, everyday choices. High school students in grades 9 through 12 may produce an original 30-second PSA reflecting the same theme. The submission deadline is November 18th. Contest details and entry forms can be found in the community flyers section under the Family Resources tab on the district website.
Thank you. Brian.
Congratulations to the following Westfield High School students who earned perfect scores in the subject areas of the September ACT. Juniors Kyle Azaretto, Science and STEM, Julia Weinstein, English. Seniors Alexander Joseph, Math, Science, and STEM. Madeline Katz, Reading, and Ryan Zadrozny, Reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken.
Okay. We extend our thanks to the 7 candidates who are running for the Westfield Board of Education. 5 residents are seeking election to 3 3-year terms. Andrew Bauer, Michael Beelan, Patrick Justin Fahey, Brendan Galligan, and Amy Root. Robert Garrison is running unopposed for an uninspired 2-year term, while Brian Morrissey is also running unopposed for an uninspired 1-year term. The election will be held on Tuesday, November 5th. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. More information, including candidate profiles, a video recording of the recent candidates' night, and polling locations, can be found on the district website at www.westfieldnjk12.org under the board drop-down menu. Thank you.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Yes, the New Jersey Department of Education's Office of School Preparedness and Emergency Planning will share a presentation entitled School Safety and Security for Parents on Wednesday, November 20th from 7 to 9 in the Edison Intermediate School Auditorium. Topics to be discussed include recommended visitor procedures for schools, the importance of situational awareness, and the quote, "See Something, Say Something" campaign to report suspicious activity. The presentation also will cover communicating during a crisis, why schools conduct safety drills, and why school security is everyone's responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
I have one. Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Thursday, November 7th and Friday, November 8th for teacher professional days consistent with the NJEA convention. Additionally, students in kindergarten through grade 5 only will have early dismissal on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, November 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Thank you. Dr. Dolan, do you have anything?
I do not.
I'd like to announce that the next meeting of the Westfield Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, November 12th at 7:30 p.m. at 302 Elm Street. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, November 8th on the board section of the district website. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public for agenda items only. Seeing nobody come forth to the podium, we'll move on to the superintendent's reports. Dr. Dolan.
Thank you. So tonight's presentation focuses on 2 different state reports. They're both required by the state for all public school districts. The first one is the Student Safety Data System. We're required to do that twice a year. And the second one is the school self-assessment for determining HIB grade. When we say HIB, that's the acronym for Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying. So the first one, Student Safety Data System. This is what is used to collect data from every public school district throughout the state. There are 2 report periods each year. One is from September 1 to December 31st, and the second one from January 1 to June 30th. Generally speaking, because there's a shorter span of time for the first period, generally speaking, there are more incidents in the second half of the year. So we're required every year to present the 2 at different meetings. So if we look across at the data from the previous year, it's reported by school. The first column talks about incidents. The state is very, very particular in their definitions of what is included in incidents. So their definition includes incidents of violence, vandalism, substances, weapons, or harassment, intimidation, or bullying confirmed. But there are other reasons why students might be removed from a school. Sometimes, for example, that has to do with vaping, something we've been working really hard on, something that is vital to the health of our students and actually our parents as well, and something we take very seriously and continue to work to try to make sure people understand the dangers of vaping. As we look at all of these different incidents that happen, we also take and we monitor how many trainings we present and how many programs we present. The trainings might focus on the actual requirements of the law, might focus on our code of conduct, and the programs often are bringing in other people to help reinforce the message to all of our students that, as we said in the last meeting of the board, that every student should be respecting themselves, others, and also their school community. It's ongoing work. There's never a moment where you determine that you're finished, you've completed it. It's ongoing and it's important, and we remain committed to it. We do look every year to see if there are any patterns. One of the patterns last year certainly was continuing of vaping, despite health teachers talking about it, despite programs for both parents and for students, and it's something we continue. We continue to have students who on social media use social media inappropriately and sometimes do a great deal of harm. Something they would never say face to face with another student, they maybe very easily might put it on social media or somehow digitally. That's something that I know parents try to work with their students, and I know we do the same. But those are two of the patterns which we really continuously try to work on and try to improve. Often the students might be a little bit too young to have all that power in their hand, and sometimes they make very poor decisions that have bad consequences. The second report, as I mentioned, has to do with harassment, intimidation, and bullying. It's required by the New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. Under that, every school is required to have a school improvement panel, also called a SKIP. School improvement panel, one of their duties every year is to do a self-assessment, and the state is very specific as to what should be self-assessed. That committee, by the way, includes administrators, it includes teachers, and it includes at least one parent. So they have to look and self-assess, how are we doing on offering programs? Do our teachers really understand this? Do our students really understand this? Are there other initiatives that are going to be more effective? Were we not happy with what happened last year? Training to make sure that people understand what is the Board of Education approved HIB policy. Other staff instruction and training programs. Curriculum and instruction on HIB and related information and skills. That can take place often in a health class, but it also can take place in a literature class. Some of the books we choose, some of what the students read, it is meant to reinforce our efforts in that area. HIB personnel. Every school has to have somebody who is the anti-bullying specialist. And we have to make sure that that's up to date, and there's a person who is well-trained, who is the key person in each building. School-level HIB incident reporting procedures. There are very strict requirements, how many days investigations have to take, when it has to go before a board, et cetera. They're very specific. We have to monitor how we've done on that. The HIB investigation procedure, and also the HIB reporting. So each panel has to look at each of the various categories, and there are quite a few categories underneath the elements, and give a score as to how they're doing. Now, we have the charts, and you can see how elaborate this is. There are many, many questions having to do just with core element 1, for example. And then there are specific questions on the training. And for every one of the elements, there are a series of questions which everyone on the panel has to talk about. What did we do well this year? What needs to be improved next year? Where did we go down? And we don't want to see, generally speaking, the exact same score from year to year, because there will be changes. And there are times where you have to adjust what you're doing and make changes. So these scores are being presented to the board, and later in the meeting, underneath the policy section of the agenda, the board will be asked to approve these scores that were determined by the teams in each school. If the board does approve that, I'm then required to submit them to the state for their review, and then towards the end of the year, they will give me notification whether they accept the scores or not, and then these are reported again to the board at the end of the year. So twice a year, basically, we review this information a bit. We do take this very seriously, and again, I wish I could tell you that we're going to solve it and we're not going to ever have a problem again. I wish I could tell you that. But we have students, and students are learning, and students need consequences sometimes, and but we know that this is important. We do know that not only is that important for our students, that is important for all the adults as well. That people have to know that they are respected, they need to know how to respect others, and they need to respect their community as well. So it's something we do work on day in and day out.
Dr. Dolan,
Yes.
are all schools evaluated the same between grade levels? So is the high school evaluated on the same metrics as, say, Lincoln?
They are actually, yes. It would be defined a little bit differently, obviously.
Right.
If you're reviewing the HIB policy with our littlest ones in Lincoln,
Of
it
course.
would be done at a very different level, but yes, they are assessed the same way.
Dr. Dolan, I don't mean to make you go back. There was on the student safety data system slide, there was something called other incidents leading to removal.
Right.
So incidents are defined, and then if if there's an incident that doesn't fall within that definition, is that what that second category
Yes,
is?
the second column would be those students who were removed. They either had an in-school suspension or an out-of-school suspension, but yet it did not fall under the state's definition of an incident.
Okay.
And so, for example, one example of that would be vaping. Under the current state definition, vaping is not considered by the state as an incident. My guess is that will change either this year or next year, but it doesn't. So a student who was found to have been vaping, that would be under the second column. They would have been given consequences, but it would have been under other incidents.
So I suspect that's what accounts for those high numbers at Edison and Roosevelt.
A
I
lot
mean,
of-
at the high school in Edison.
those were quite a few of them, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
All
they
right.
were.
Thank you.
Were any of those incidents at the high school or at Edison due to weapons issues with students bringing weapons into the school?
There were 2 weapon issues, yes. One at two different schools, yes. And again, the state's very specific in what is considered a weapon, very, very specific. Just another small point to this, when there is something that's illegal, not only is it reported on this, but obviously the police are involved, right? There are certain things, there's no question. If something is illegal, the police are called, and that is not only discipline in the school, but it's also consequences by the police department. And that does happen.
Any other questions? No, thank you very much, Dr. Jones. I'd like the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on October 15th, 2019, and the private minutes of October 15th, 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brendan, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Moving on, personnel. Amy?
Yes, I'd like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 14. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kent. I don't think there are any comments that we're calling out tonight. If there are no questions, we'll take a vote.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Gretchen, facilities. Do you have a report?
No report. Thank you.
Moving on, long-range planning. Amy?
I also have no report tonight.
Okay. Policies. Brendan?
Yes. I ask the board to approve policy items number 1 and 2.
Second.
You can. Policy item number 1 is first reading for, looks like 9 different policies that we reviewed at our last meeting. 0131, 0141, 0142, 0142.1, 5611, 5613, 8130, 8465, and 9150. We have completed our review cycle for the first time. So one of the changes we're making is it's no longer to be called a 5-year review cycle. It took us 6 years the first time to do it, so we're changing it to actually reflect the amount of time that it takes. All of the 0 series policies are our bylaws, and they require us to notify you guys 10 days before any posted changes. So that's why they went out much earlier than the Friday before this meeting. Imagine that will continue for the next couple board meetings until we're through the 0 series going forward. And then item number 2 is the HIB self-reporting grades, as Dr. Dillon just mentioned. Any questions? Dana?
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
And I ask the board to approve policy item number 3 from the superintendent's decision on HIB incidents 20HS01, 20E01, and 20R01 for the reasons set forth therein. Dana?
Need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yeah.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
And that is it.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Brendan.
Mhm.
Amy, we'll move on to curriculum.
Yes, I'd like the board to consider curriculum items 1 through 4. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. The items we're reviewing are field trips and overnight field trips, item number 1. Item number 2 was the bulk of our curriculum meeting last Thursday, the 24th of October. We talked about a number of high school level English language arts classes, 2 AP classes, and then another class that provides writing support, blog writing, and a semester-long elective called Writer's Craft. The other curriculum items we discussed were elementary music classes with teachers from several of the music programs. So those are the curriculum that we're approving tonight. We also have one candidate, intern or teacher, who's coming back twice, which is lovely. And number 4 is the school nursing plan, which is attached. Any questions about these items?
For the curriculum, it doesn't necessarily mean something's changed, or has it changed? I was looking at the music one in particular because it kind of relates to my daughter, and I didn't see any changes, or I couldn't tell there was any changes. Are there edits?
There's
this?
always updates because they also come to us on a 5-year plan, and so when there's inevitably some kind of a change to the language of the standards that the state puts out.
Right.
So just calling it the New Jersey State Learning Standards is part of what gets reviewed.
Okay.
Yeah, by the time it gets to the curriculum committee of the board, it
Yeah.
has been through what's called instructional council, which is sort of other staff members, administrators, teachers reviewing the curriculum. And most often, so there's not a track changes document. I mean, I think in most cases we're reviewing curriculum in a 5-year cycle, much like we do policies and
Right.
everything else. So it might be a refresher and update, but as Amy points out, quite often the standards have changed, the language of the standards has changed, sometimes significantly, so it's more to align it with state standards.
And whereas the policy committee we've been trying to remove specific references to state guidelines because inevitably a state test changes and now we have to update our policies to reflect it. The curriculum really needs to specify which policy guidelines they're working off of, or curriculum guidelines they're working off of. So when the state updates their curriculum standards for a subject area, we have to update as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and just one final comment on that too. When it's an AP class, there's also coordination with the college board that issues the test. So if they make some kind of change to their recommended subjects, or if they're changing the nature of the test, then there's additional guidance that goes out to the supervisors and the teachers that are teaching that class. These 2 particular ones for English that we were reviewing were not substantively changed, but there have been others that we've talked about that have.
Okay. So these aren't new courses, they're just existing ones that were updated?
All of these classes are existing classes.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Thanks.
correct. Yeah, okay. Let's vote. Dana?
Can I just make one comment on the English language and the music? I just wanted to recognize the teachers that came in to meet with us. I think that the town should know the passion that those teachers show when they're talking about these subjects. It's extremely impressive, and I just wanted to acknowledge them for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's actually, this particular curriculum meeting went on for, I think, 4 hours. But it's fascinating. And I think those of us that are able to sit on that committee and attend those meetings on a regular basis are really fortunate because we do get to interact with the teachers in the district.
Yeah.
And we walk away impressed, I'd say, every month. Yeah, that's true. It's an excellent point, Tara. Thanks. Okay. Dana?
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Tara. I'm going to move on to finance. I'd like the board to consider items 1 through 11. Do I have a second? Brendan, thank you. I just lost my train of thought here. I'd like to call out a couple of gifts. Or do we have to vote first?
Come
We'd like to accept quite a few gifts from the Westfield High School PTSO, and we thank you very much for those. $4,400 to purchase an HDU sign.
What's that?
I believe that sign is on the corner of Trinity and
Yes.
Dorian. There's a
Yes, we
new
did,
high school sign.
Yep.
There's always been one on the corner of Dorian and Rawway.
Right.
So now there is I'm not gonna call it a matching sign, but there is another sign if you're coming toward the high school down Dorian from Central Avenue.
Right. They put it in a
That they-
couple weeks ago.
That they
Nice.
added to the front of the school. It's lovely. They also are continuing a project. Last year, they bought a new desk for the front entrance of the hallway as you enter the high school. And they were working to do some painting and continuing to take the whole remodeling thing. So we'd like to thank them for a gift of $5,790 for cafeteria B being painted, $13,455.80 for painting the auditorium lobby, and $9,618.75 for painting of the front hallway and the cafeteria hallway, all just helping us spruce up the high school and so forth. And when I was there at the beginning of the year, the new desk really makes it look official as you enter there and so forth, and I'm sure the teachers and whoever sits there and does duty appreciates that. So thank you to the Westfield High School PTSO. I'd also like to accept a gift of $360 from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts to go towards master classes for the 7th grade woodwind classes at Roosevelt Intermediate School. I'd also like to accept a gift of $349.70 to purchase an iPad and a case from the Jefferson School PTO for use in the nurse's office. And also, I'd like to accept a gift of $175 from the McKinley School PTO to cover the cost of a nurse to accompany the 3rd grade classes on their walking tour of Westfield on October 23rd, 2019. As always, I thank all the PTSOs for supporting us and helping us with programs, our facilities, and so forth. Your time and generosity are truly appreciated. So, Dana?
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher,
Yes.
Brian Morrissey,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Not seeing Michael here this evening.
There was no technology. We didn't meet.
Right, we have not met since our last meeting, so I'm sure Michael will have an update after the next technology meeting. I'd like the board to consider the notes for the record.
In those notes for the record, if I might note, there's another 10 bylaws that were updated.
Thank you,
They were
Brennan.
reviewed,
Reviewed, sorry.
no changes.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Okay, do we have any unfinished business?
No.
Do we have any new business? Okay, any liaison reports?
I did.
Okay.
I sat in on the Lincoln PTO meeting. It was
Mhm.
very productive, really dedicated parents in that group. The book fair times, I wanted to announce those. The book fair will be held on 11/4, 5, and 6, from 1:15 to 7:45. I believe that they might have been in touch with you, Dr. Dolan, about security during those times. I'm not sure if you spoke to Principal Zappitz yet about that.
She did, yeah, she and I did communicate. Could you say the times again?
1:15 to 7:45 on Monday, 11/4, 11/5, and 11/6.
Those are the half-days.
Those are the half-days, exactly right. There had been a time where it was, I think last year maybe it was open for a time in the morning when there were students still in place, and that was canceled due to security reasons.
So this is open to the public, but there will not be students in class at the time
That's
of the
correct.
book fair.
That's correct.
Okay. And I also just wanted to talk about something that they did that I just thought everyone should know about. The nurse there, I hope I'm saying the name right, Jasenia Avedo, had requested and the board unanimously approved a mannequin for them to work with, a CPR mannequin. It was extremely successful at Lincoln. They trained the staff with it and found that jobs that they had assigned to staff members in the event of a cardiac emergency didn't really work because some of the staff members were not actually able to press down to the level that the mannequin indicated. So as a result of that, they were able to shift around responsibilities to make sure that the kids are as safe as possible. So I was really excited about that. And the last thing is that they discussed, and I don't know if this makes sense for the other schools, a PTO shed outside of the school so that supplies could be stored there to minimize the in and out for all the parents involved with PTO events.
I know there's at least one other elementary school that does that. There might be two now. I think people are talking about it more. And I know it's working for that one school though.
Right.
So for the PTO shed, these are things that the PTO uses that would be outside, not having to do with gym or anything, but,
Right, supplies for events that the PTO
okay,
manages.
great.
Yeah. If that hasn't come up yet at a PTC meeting, it would probably be a good one to discuss, just because they get representatives from all the PTOs at that monthly gathering.
Right.
Right.
And we have one tomorrow at PTC meeting.
Well, hey, there, very timely. Excellent. And the portion from 10:15 is open to the public.
That's great. That's
Yes.
correct.
In this very room. Yep.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Tara.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I met with the Tamaulipas PTO and also the Westbrook, the library board. First, the library board They're gonna do the extended hours again in the winter for the exams like they did last year. It was very successful.
Mhm.
So they're gonna do that again. Tamaka's PTO, we talked about the vestibules, no real updates there, and then, lost my train of thought. We'll come back to me.
Last week, Rob, Amy, and I joined Dr. Dolan and Dana down in Atlantic City for the New Jersey School Boards Association convention. We spent 2 days, I believe you spent 3 down there, taking classes on anything from building security to social emotional learning, special education programs. Really, I can't. About 200 classes we could have taken over the couple days. Well worth the trip down. Suggest everybody go down at least once while they're on the board.
How many districts were represented there? Almost
There were-
all?
I would think all of them.
Every district was invited, and there were 800 vendors.
And there were over 9,000 in attendance at the
Yeah.
conference.
That's great.
It's big.
Mhm.
I don't have district by district stats, but I know county by county, every county had at least 85% of their boards paying to go down with at least one member.
That's great. It's great to see the support and so forth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you for representing.
Yes, thank you all for going.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
it's a good opportunity, yeah.
Mhm.
Can
And
okay.
I was just going to say that this is not an official liaison report, but Amy and I did meet with the mayor this morning to continue our dialogue working together, which we think is important. She thinks it's important, we think it's important. And we do kind of periodically, once every 2 to 3 months, sit down with the mayor and just update her on things that are going on in the district. She kind of brings us into the loop as to what they're working on within the town council and so forth. So it allows us to work a little bit more cooperatively. No official report, but just so everybody realizes that, we are, trying to work together with the town council and, continue to make Westfield the best place it can be.
Right, really helpful too, considering how often their meetings and our meetings happen on the same night. Tonight being one of those nights. And to further the conversation about cooperation, I liaise with the town's green team, which is a lot of volunteers who are very passionate about sustainability and different kinds of projects like composting and creating rain gardens and things like that. And David Contract, who's one of the third ward, our third ward councilman, is on that committee as well. And he and 2 other members of the green team last Friday went to Franklin to do a second presentation of what they call their 3 Rs, to talk to the elementary school kids about the importance of reducing, reusing, and recycling. They had a good time. The kids seemed to have a good time. The administrators at the school were very appreciative. And Mr. Contract would like me to emphasize that any other schools that would like to have that group come in and speak to a class, to the students, they'd be happy to. They previously had done their very first one at Tamaqua back in September. And I think it was Principal Dulks talking about that with the principals when they do their monthly meetings, helped kind of reinforce that was a nice idea. Feel free to reach out. Okay, that's it.
Oh, you remember what they were saying, the last thing, I'm sorry, for the brain freeze. They also talked about the security presentation that Mr. Gambino's gonna do in November. That was,
Right.
they're getting ready to promote it, and I think it's a good thing that that's happening. They encouraged everyone to go.
I actually got to meet him down in Atlantic City. I
Okay.
caught the last half of his presentation. These presentations down there all overlap with each other, so it's a
Yeah.
little hard. But I did go in and see part of his, part of the speech the talk he was giving down there, and I walked up and introduced himself and said, we're looking forward to seeing you on November 20th in Westfield. So that was
Good.
nice. Yeah. Mhm.
Great, thank you. Everybody was busy at meetings this year. So, okay, moving on. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public. If you have anything you'd like to discuss with us, please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Hi, Alicia Grippy-Vierag, 220 Jefferson. Thank you, all of you, for all of your hard work, as always, and your time this evening. Thank you to Superintendent Dolan. I read your newsletter that you published, I believe, a week and a half ago. Very informative. In it, you mentioned new people not being super aware of all the due diligence all of you have done over the years as far as security is concerned. And I just wanted to extend to you that I fully think all of you have done due diligence in the past. I moved to town a year and a half ago, and I'd like to think of myself as a fresh set of eyes, an extra set of eyes. And so when we ask questions, it's just because maybe the way things appear aren't what's going on in your smaller committee meetings. So I just want to bring up one item, and this really came out of, I went to the candidates meeting last week. I was only there for about a half hour, but again, I thought it was very useful. And it just seems to me that a lot of items are being looked at very separately and in silos. So on one hand, we have the need for updated sports fields. Over here, we have security. In the middle, we have kindergarten. And then separately, we have, academics, science labs, etc. So really, I'm thinking, are we really prepared for 2025, 2030? Maybe we need to reach out to the town and get everybody on board on making improvements across the board, not just saying voting on a kindergarten or voting on sports fields. Maybe we need to say, hey, we need a larger improvement across all the schools to remain competitive. Piece of it is going to be safety. Piece of it is going to be a new science lab. Just this way you could get buy-in for various people. Because right now, I am reading Facebook, and what I'm seeing is if you have children in high school, you don't really care about kindergarten. Not saying this is for all people, but it's the people on Facebook. That's what they're saying. I don't have children in kindergarten, but I think it's an awesome idea. It's 2020. Why wouldn't we have all-day kindergarten? So I just think maybe more needs to be done to get various people's buy-ins. I know Cranford, over the last several years, did a reimagination plan, and this is exactly what they've done. They're building a new science lab. They built a vestibule in the high school. So it seems like they really gotten a little bit of a knack of, hey, let's get everybody on board. To the folks who are going to say, oh, well, how much is that going to cost? Obviously, everything has a cost, but we have to remain competitive. And if we're not competitive, our property values are going to go down because people are going to choose other towns. So the niche 2020 Safety School District ratings came out a few months ago. Number 4 was Milburn, number 5 was Summit, number 8 was Cranford. And I mentioned those 3 towns because I have a friend who does real estate out of Hoboken, and she routinely takes people around to various suburbs that she's familiar with. And these are the 3 towns the people chose, her most recent home sales. These are the towns they chose. She visited Westfield, they visited Westfield, they didn't choose Westfield. So it's something, food for thought. Another thing I want to mention, I was disappointed to hear that we aren't moving forward with vestibules just because the risk reward seemed to not be there. I spoke to educators in Metuchen and Cranford. Both of these townships have double door entry systems, and their numbers didn't jive with our numbers. $5 million was not a number that they had heard. They didn't need to raise a bond to do this. I don't know how they did it, but it seems to be something that they put in place even before our June incident, which again, very, very low probability this is going to happen, but I feel like we need to be prepared if it does. In the short term, I know vestibules would take several years to get them in all of our school. In the short term, I feel like we need to do something because this country has a gun problem. I've given to the Sandy Hook problem, the Sandy Hook project for several years now. I am all about it. And I just unfortunately don't agree with the folks who say putting a friendly, specifically trained police officer in all the schools is making it a military zone. It's just not true. We have 3 SROs currently. They're parked at the middle school all day and the high school all day. I'm around town, I see it. It makes me feel better. I wish the elementary schools had the same thing. A lot of us have ADT signs outside of our homes to deter crime. The middle schools and high schools have something, a visible sign to deter crime. The elementary schools still don't have anything. And unfortunately, there's no statistic I could give to you to say, hey, this is how many crimes were stopped by police presence. Also, I know one of the one of the private schools in town, teachers and aides have pendant panic buttons that go directly to the police stations. So when they are out with the children at recess, they're able to hit these panic buttons and it goes directly there. And anytime you have a quicker response time from the police department, you're going to have a better result. So again, I'm here in partnership. I think we could be doing more. I'm hoping that we do have time to get some changes in place, like for the second half of the year, maybe next year. And also, I would love to hear what all of you just mentioned. You were down at the NJSBA convention. I'd love to hear more about what came out of that, the safety classes you attended. Very interested. Thank you.
Can I ask what school uses the pendants, just so we can look further into it?
I'm not comfortable saying that.
I know, so I can.
Okay, perfect.
So I thought there were a lot of good ideas there. I just wanted to make sure that I gave
Want me to
credit.
stay there?
No, that's okay. That's not, I'm not disagreeing with you at all, so don't worry. I just wanted to give the police department credit. It is true, we have SROs in each of the 3 secondary schools, but at the elementary schools, the police are committed, and every morning for an hour and every afternoon for an hour, the police do security checks on each of our elementary schools, and we really do appreciate that. I know it's not exactly what you were saying, but I just wanted.
Yeah, and I love that they're there twice a day, and I'd love it for them to be more. And maybe we can't get one at every school in the short term, but I think we can probably get more. Maybe 2 or 3 schools have another SRO. Cranford right now, they have 8 schools, they have 4 SROs, so their ratio is a bit better than ours.
Right, but one of their SROs is also their juvenile officer, and actually we have an SRO who's a juvenile officer also, so it's pretty similar, actually. Yeah. But I thought good ideas, and
Good evening. My name is Allison Simone. I'm at 114 Green Place. I am very blessed to have 2 children, 2 different levels of the Westfield School District.
Oh, you have to say your address.
She did.
Yep, no, she did.
Green Place.
Green
That's
egg.
okay. I do have 2 children. I have a daughter who just started kindergarten. She's at Lincoln School, and my son is in 7th grade at Edison. So I've been through the school system. I've seen a lot of changes. And one change hit me with quite surprise last week, and I am still itching over it. And it is dealing with head lice, and I came to specifically talk about it. There is a group of moms, and it's a wonderful community that goes on at Lincoln School, and they are all concerned, and they are all very upset. And I'm here to advocate for all of them. There was an incident of head lice reported at the school, and the school failed to notify the parents. When we called to complain to the school, we were told that they're not going to tell us, and they're not going to let us know if our child is at a higher risk than other children in that classroom due to confidentiality reasons. We were then told to refer to the CDC website to let us know that it is less likely that lice can be passed at school. Not unlikely, less likely. We were then told that lice is not a disease. And then why are we being referred to the CDC website? Did not make any sense. We were also told that it was policy that we were not being told. This is your school policy on head lice. It is 1 line. This is not a policy. This is the management plan that we were sent 3 days after we found out that there was a case sent. 3 days after. So 3 days after complaints came, we were sent this notice. This notice is not on your website. It wasn't on your website until Monday morning. A week after. This is not a policy. This also does not clearly define what lice is, how you get it, how we're going to prevent it, or prevent it from spreading, I should say, because we're not going to prevent it, and what precautionary measures we as parents can take for our children. And that for me is an issue. And it's an issue for all the parents at Lincoln School, and it should be an issue for all the parents in any of the elementary schools, being that this is something that affects preschoolers through elementary school. They're in the same class all day long. My kids, all they do, they hug each other. It's wonderful. They love each other, and their heads are always touching each other. It's how it gets passed. We're being told that it doesn't get passed that way. Well, the community came together and we all started reporting to each other. There was one case on Tuesday. By the end of the week, 5 children in one class had reported an incident. 5. That spread in one classroom and 2 others in another class. It's spreading in the schools. So referring to the CDC and going off of that website, it's not an answer. It's not a good answer. I've taken the liberty of writing up a policy. I'm assuming you're the policy person? I'll gladly give that to you. I have a copy for each of you. Board of Education is your duty to maintain a healthy learning environment for our children. And I feel like we've failed in this particular area. And I understand that this is not a disease. My child is not going to get horrifically sick, but it is an infestation. It is certainly an inconvenience. It is something that is treated with chemicals on our children's head. Should not be allowed in schools. And I understand that we do not, we don't want to exclude kids, and I know that this is the tone that we're setting in the schools, and I understand that. However, and you'll see, and we can pass it out, I can read through it if you like. If not, I can give it to you. I can come back and we can do another vote. I would love that. You have active lice, shouldn't be allowed at school. You shouldn't be allowed to spread it to other children. You just shouldn't. It's not right. It's not fair. And the parents should be notified. Should always be notified. It is your job here on the board to create the rules, to create this healthy, safe place for our children. It is your facility, your staffs, it's their job to facilitate that, and as parents, it's our job to enforce that with our children at home. And without the proper information, we can't do that. We can't. I spent $98 last week on preventative stuff that I didn't even know if I needed, because I just wasn't given good information to properly protect my daughter from getting lice. I don't want bugs in my house. I want to pick bugs out of my daughter's hair. I don't want to get it. I don't want to have to take off work and possibly spread it to other people. I have a son. I don't want him to get it and take it to school. I want to stop it in its tracks. And without the proper notification, which we were denied, I can't do that. Neither can any of those parents.
Wait, I'm confused. What is so you were notified?
We were not notified.
You were not
That's my
notified.
issue, is that I was not notified.
And if you had gotten notified, what would you have done differently than what you already did?
I wouldn't have freaked out.
Oh.
It wouldn't have caused panic. Parents were panicking. And all we had to go off was assumptions and rumors until we all banded together and say, okay, let's get together what we know. What do we know? What information do we have that we can say 100%, I know this. And then we were able to say, okay, this is how we think that we need to follow through. And granted, that's wonderful and that's great that we were able to come together as a community, but all it took was one good piece of information. One good piece of information. And all of these parents could rest easy. If I would have known that, a child in Joe Schmo's class in the morning had nits, not active lice, but nits, and my daughter's in PM at the other end of the building, I'm not going to freak out. I'm going to be precautious, but I'm not going to freak out. But if I know that another child in my daughter's class has active lice, that child's not being excluded from school, they're allowed to stay in school, well, I'm going to do a lot. I sent my daughter to school. Her head it was like a helmet on her head. I had so much hairspray in her hair because I was so afraid that she was getting this and bringing it home. I don't want to be like that. I don't want my 5-year-old asking me, Mommy, why do I have to put all this in my hair? Why am I doing all of this? It shouldn't have to be that way. And all I'm asking for is to put an actual policy in place, a policy that identifies what this is, how it occurs, how it's spread, how we can prevent more spread, and the precautions that we as parents should be taking so that it's not spreading. That's what I'm proposing.
So I don't happen to have the policy on me, but
I will gladly give you a
I just
sheet.
have, that's fine, either I can, you can. I was just gonna ask you to read the highlight, what you had highlighted.
On the page,
Yeah, if not, I will.
from your
Either way.
webpage, pediculosis, headlights. Examinations will be conducted in accordance with procedures determined by the school medical examiner. That is it.
Right, exactly. So that's what, and the other piece of paper that you held up is what was reviewed with the school physician, and it's based on the current guidance from the healthcare. As you can imagine, we know we are not, I'll speak for myself, I know I am not the expert on medical issues, right? That's why we have school nurses, that's why we have a school physician, that's why they go not only to the CDC, but to the other groups that are listed on this paper, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Association of School Nurses, the Harvard School of Public Health. What is the current guidance? What you're describing, I remember that. That used to be what was recommended by the health industry. That's exactly what used to be suggested, but it's not the current guidance. So we didn't make this up. We'll be glad to look at your policy, but do know what we really count on are the people who, and you may be in healthcare, I have no idea, but what we really count on are those people who, they are the experts, this is the guidance, and then it is reviewed by our school physician. So I don't want you to think there's one sentence in the policy and we forgot it. There are guidelines here, and the guidelines are different from what they used to be.
Okay, I do understand that. You are missing information from the National Pediculosis Association, which says they are on a strict no-nip policy. And I feel like if we're going to talk to anybody about how to deal with head lice, I feel like the one group in this country that all they do is head lice probably should be the one that we listen to. And we're pushing the CDC forward, and on the CDC website specifically, it says that the CDC is not a regulatory agency and that you should not be making regulations based on what's on their website. And you've done just that.
Well, not exactly, because then we took the information and then it was
And made
reviewed all the information was reviewed. But again, we'll be glad to take a look at what you presented tonight, and we'll be glad to then present it again to the people who are the experts in the field.
Not a problem. The parents in the community have also rallied behind this. I have shared this with all of them. They are willing to petition for notification if it does not get passed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We can pass them around.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anybody want? Okay. Name and address, sorry, and I won't be writing your name while you say your address,
Okay.
sorry.
Nick Martini, 618 Arlington Avenue. And I'm a senior of the Westfield High School lacrosse team, and we just heard rumors around school today who our new head coach would be from reliable sources and come here and be announced. Do you have any information on that?
This was on the agenda, wasn't it?
I didn't get one, sorry.
Yes, it's item number 11 on the agenda, and the board approved it. William Wertheimer.
Thank you.
I'm assuming you look happy?
Yeah, no,
Yes, it was made official tonight, so.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for coming, guys.
We could have seen it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
They sat through the whole thing, little did they know.
I know, right?
It was one of the first things we voted on.
Or they could have just read it.
Yes, on Friday.
So I'm glad we got a little relief with the kids. That was good. Unfortunately, what I have to say is
Name and
not.
address.
Oh,
Sorry,
I'm
name and
sorry.
address first.
Randy
Thanks.
Warnes, 760 Boulevard. So I have a child in high school, and from another parent, I became privy to a questionnaire that was given out in a social studies class. It's titled, "Are you liberal or conservative?" And the issue that I have with the questionnaire, besides getting into some of the particular leading questions, is that there was a lot of discussion here about kids and behavior and that they're kids and they have to learn. It seems to me that before we start identifying where we stand in, politically, particularly in a very politically charged atmosphere that we're in this country, we should learn the basis of what we're all about, what our country is all about, what our country was founded on. We should be united versus divided. And so this whole questionnaire is sort of dividing people into one camp or another camp. And it's, being divisive with children, I think, is, I think it's terrible. One, I think it's irresponsible. And so when I saw this questionnaire, and I'll just take a look at one question, because when I say a leading question, I'm saying that it leads a child to answer in a very particular way, based on the way the question is stated. For example, the federal government has an obligation to regulate business in order to preserve the environment for future generations. So if I'm a good person, I'll say, of course I want to preserve the environment. Who wouldn't want to preserve the environment, right? So what if I say no to that? Does that make me a bad person? Or maybe that question doesn't give me enough information to give an answer. It reminds me of, and this is something that's happening sort of broadly throughout society, and it's very disturbing. This reminds me of a diversity training I had at work. There was a question about, okay, who would be better at any particular job or task? And they just put up 2 pictures. And my first answer is, I have no idea. How would I possibly know that from 2 pictures? But I was forced to give an answer based on 2 pictures. What are we doing here? I mean, and I get it. I'm an adult. These are kids. They don't know the difference between a leading question and a not leading question. Maybe some do, a small fraction, but most don't. It's inappropriate. It's not appropriate for kids. How about we learn how to learn? We learn what it is to be an American. And then we can decide, hey, I think this way, I think that way. There's many other questions here that, are pretty egregious. That was one of the more tame ones to bring out.
What grade are your kids in?
My kids are freshmen.
Freshmen.
Yeah.
Was it given out in their class?
It was not given out in his class. I got it from another parent.
So I was asking, I hate to see anything taken out of context.
Right.
We take a survey that I don't know where it came from, what led to that survey.
Right.
So I'd
So I
like
can
to get
tell
a
you
little bit
that
more
the-
information as to what class and.
The survey, the copyright is the Center for Learning, used with permission, not for resale. But, I didn't do any research on the Center for Learning or anything else. I just saw I wasn't nearly as prepared as some of the other folks. I saw the survey, immediately struck me that the questions are leading kids into a particular answer, and it's manipulation, it's indoctrination, and it's wrong.
So I don't know the context. I don't know what class it was from, but it's really hard to respond without knowing what they've been talking about, because what
Right.
I heard when you asked the question was whether it was an obligation of the federal government
Right.
to regulate businesses from an environmental perspective, which to me is really not about whether environment
Yeah.
is good or bad, but about what the federal government's obligation is, which I'm sure was the context within which it was brought. So
I think the future generations part is sort of the leading, on the trail end, really.
yeah, again, it's totally hard to
You're
talk
right.
about it
You're
out of
right, and
context.
that's why the question's not a good question. There's no context to it.
Well, but they have context because they're in class.
Right.
We don't know what they've been learning about.
And that would be something we'd have to look into. What was the context? What else had been discussed?
I would appreciate what the context is.
Well,
All I was given was a survey.
What we encourage all of our parents to do if they have questions, is for the people with kids in that class to ask the teacher, because they're the ones who know. They're the ones who had something in mind when they handed it out to the class. I don't even know what class that was.
Right.
My kids
Right.
have both gone all the way through the high school.
Mhm.
I never heard about that particular questionnaire. I couldn't even identify which teacher would have given out something like that, and as Gretchen said, we don't know the context.
All right,
I don't think it was given in the context of, we're gonna assign a grade based on how you answer this. I would assume, but it is an assumption, that what they were doing with that was to provoke conversation. But we don't know, so I would say to my friend who produced this,
I think what
that
you're
they
doing
should
is
discuss the
you're
teacher.
putting kids into categories versus,
You don't know
let's-
that.
Well, you're asked to be one or the
You
other.
have to wait for your turn.
That's the question.
Right. What would be really helpful is if either somebody tells me or someone else, or what would be really helpful if the parent who had a concern would go directly to the teacher, because then it can start to be addressed, right?
Yep.
But if somebody else knows who the teacher is, we can look into it, because it could or could not make sense in a context. I don't have a judgment on it, because I don't know what else they'd studied, what else they'd looked at, and what the directions were for it.
My concern is that this is the direction the curriculum is going, and that bothers me.
So honestly, it's been really difficult, and I've said this at other meetings, it's been very, very difficult to be a social studies teacher in the last several years in this country. You alluded to that, really, that,
Mhm.
because of the current climate. And we have worked hard. Now, I know on any given day, we're not perfect. I certainly understand that. But we have worked really hard. Our teachers have received training in civil discourse, because there are different ideas out there. And we don't have one type of student. We have all different types of students who bring in their thoughts, their parents' thoughts into a class. And teachers cannot take sides. That's not what we're here for. We're here, as you said before, one of our jobs is to help develop the next generation of people who will keep a democracy. It's one of our most vital jobs, in my view. And the only way that happens if they have knowledge, which you alluded to, they have absolute knowledge, and that they also learn how to have civil discourse, how to disagree with someone, but in a civil way, where
Right.
maybe people can learn or respect somebody else's opinion. So I know we're not perfect. I have no idea if that was done well or not, but in order to figure out if it was, we need to know where that was given, and then understand what was the rest of the week, what was the rest of the unit.
And I do get the point. The questions go across a pretty wide spectrum. And so this isn't about, hey, we're learning about this particular issue, we've studied it in some level of depth, and here's a question, right? It's not possible to have covered all of these subjects in any amount of depth to be able to answer a question that's as generalized and as leading, in my view, as this question or some of these other questions. The question presupposes a circumstance versus just, providing context around it. Say, here's one side of an issue, here's another side of the issue. Where do you think you fall? That's more than one line. It can't be said in one line. And so it just, I guess, stepping back, as a general point, I don't see the point in a survey like this, when the kids are just there to learn, to figure out what they think is right, what they think is the right direction for the country to go in, what have you, or on any particular issue. To have a survey like this that leads them into an answer, how is that helpful?
Again, if anybody knows where this was given, and we can look into the situation.
I'll come
then
back at the
I
next
could-
meeting with some information
Or
on it.
before, if you want.
Yeah.
Right, and I appreciate that, because we do encourage parents to try to start at the right place that you can get, we don't know that survey.
Right.
It's not part of something that we're privileged to, as there would be a lot of information out there. But if you start with the teacher and kind of figure out what it is and what the point they're getting to, what was the lesson and so
Right.
forth, we can make better decisions, and also understand your point of view if we
Right.
kind of have more of the story rather than pulling out just the survey and not knowing all the other things that are around it.
Right.
And where it came to, so.
Good. Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Just offer, I do know one thing about it that might help a little.
Name and address? No.
Well, because
Actually, Paul, you should
Right.
probably
Right.
state who you are, so
Right.
there's
Yeah.
context there.
Hi, I'm Paul Panero. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum. So this particular questionnaire did come up to my office, in a different context, so I called the social studies supervisor. So I have one bit of information about it that gives us some perspective for tonight, but I agree with everyone else that we also want to dig into the context that it was shared in class. So this questionnaire is 10 or more years old, so it doesn't come from the immediate climate. However, I can see how it might be, I mean, even one of our board members said that last bit of language could be charged.
Mhm.
So it has been controversial over the years. The intent as I read it, trying to be, just an educator who's been in classrooms and given these kinds of provocative or at least just questionnaires that are meant to provoke conversations, if you look at all the questions, it comes down to one thing. The amount of government influence there should be, or participation there should be, or involvement there should be in a number of social constructs. So when you look at it, when you look at it just from an objective standpoint, I'm saying, oh, I see what they're doing. They're trying to make the point that conservatives typically believe that self-reliance is on one end of a spectrum and government intervention or government support on the other, whereas maybe a more liberal perspective is, yeah, government needs to help people, and then to what degree. So my guess, and I still have to follow through and see what the teacher may have been thinking, and the context that it was involved in. But my guess from the origin of this questionnaire was the idea to get, okay, if you say the government should be doing a lot, then you might be a liberal, And if you say that, no, the government should sort of stay out of it and let self-reliance take over. I mean, those are two really, I think, positive things about our country, that people want to help, but at what extent is it too much in some people's political viewpoint? And at the same time, to what extent do we value someone being able to be self-reliant? And when do we just leave them all on their own? I think it's actually really good conversation, and I think that might have been the intent to begin. All that being said, it's a tough time to have any of those conversations, so I recognize why that might have been upsetting either to students or parents for that matter. That's about all I know for now, though.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
I'm Carrie Olagino. I live at 716 Oak Ave. I'd like to know more about what the high school is going to be doing about hate speech and following up on Friday and the swastika and all of that being discussed. And I guess the reason I'm asking is because I don't think that something being said in the morning announcements is sufficient to address it with the students. As well as the fact that I know that the boys' bathrooms are filled with graffiti, the N-word, and nobody's going and scrubbing that off. So I'd like more information about that. I don't really have anything else to say. I'm just really wanting to be a sponge and know what's going to be done.
Sure. We talked about you were talking about the climate in a different way. Political climate really was your point. But really the climate in general, where any kinds of words are allowed in social media, all the former rules don't exist. I think we've actually talked about that. It's a difficult time, right? Because kids growing up tend to think that just about anything is allowable, and it's not, right? So it is a challenging time. So one of the things we did, we have worked numerous ways. I mentioned them in a meeting the last board meeting, actually some of the ways we're trying to work. And we have not found a panacea. If anyone has one, I'd be glad to have it. But what we also did, on the recommendation of parents actually, was the Anti-Defamation League has a program called No Place for Hate. And we actually had tried to become part of that program on the advice of parents in town for 2 previous years. But this summer, they admitted us into it for all 3 secondary schools. So we have started the process. There actually, any parent of somebody in secondary schools received notice of a survey that if the parents allowed, the students would take the survey to give us a baseline data of what were children, what were our students hearing in their schools, get a sense of what they were experiencing. And then that's a baseline data, and then we are working with that group, who has worked with many other schools, to determine different events and steps to take throughout the course of the year. And then there will be data at the end of the year to see what kind of progress we are making. It's something we're certainly focused on, and I wish we could fix once and for all. I wish we can, but that's another
I don't think
step.
that there's a fix, but there's definitely messages that have to be set by adults as to what's acceptable and what's not. And when you read when you read a newsletter that comes home and it says, we took whatever evidence was necessary and then we erased it, you know, if that means painting, I don't know what is done. But then, you know, you have children that say that the N-word is all over all the bathrooms, all the boys' bathrooms, so why isn't anybody erasing that?
Right, so
I'd like to know that because that goes on at Roosevelt as well. I don't know about Edison, but I'm sure I could ask my nephews.
Right, so trust me, any.
I want to know
any-
why somebody from the school administration and facilities isn't going and erasing it.
I'm sure that if the N-word, I would just,
I have pictures at home that
okay.
this is currently in the
I'm
school.
not disputing that. I'm just saying as the mother of lots of teenagers, they're not always the best self-reporters. So I'm not disputing that they
Well, I
haven't
have a
seen
biracial
it.
child.
I'm not suggesting that they haven't seen it. I'm just saying that if the administration is made aware, I am positive
But
that it's
why
taken
would
care of as
students
quickly as
have
possible.
to necessarily make somebody aware? Because as far as I know, there's hall duty. There's teachers that are walking through. If this is a known thing with the students, and believe me, the teachers know things officially and unofficially because they're in high school with the students and they're discussing things. And, you know, they know what happened over the weekend, you know, this party happened. I mean, the teachers are like knowing because it's a community, you know, there's a lot of talk. If they're walking through and doing hall duty in the bathrooms or whatever, I'm pretty sure that they must be aware, that somebody must be aware that there's graffiti in multiple bathrooms,
So whenever
you know,
anyone.
with offensive words. I mean, and if we're not aware of it, then that's probably an issue.
Right, whenever we are aware, we absolutely do take steps, the same steps for any group, and that would be very important. If anybody else is aware, it would be really helpful that you do tell me, because I will tell you that not all students are paying attention, as Gretchen alluded to. We do have our custodians go around to check. We're making sure they're doing it, and we don't want graffiti, and we want to address it anytime there is graffiti. And if a parent has a picture or a parent has a report, please tell anyone, and we'll work on it. We don't want graffiti. We work really hard all the time to do that.
I'm
and
not
it is
trying to
for
make
any
anybody
group.
defensive. I'm just saying that if you were just in the bathroom, let's say, and there was a swastika, it might be a good procedure to kind of like, oh, let's take a look in the bathrooms and see.
Yes, I would agree.
You know, I
That's
mean,
a
I'm
good
just saying
procedure.
that kind of makes like sense to me, just common sense. Like, this exists, and it's not just in one bathroom, and it seems like it's not just in one school. And so, that's all I have to say. Except, see you tomorrow morning at the PTC.
I mean, I just want to say, I believe that the incident that happened at the high school was reported by a student and brought to our attention, and it was taken care of immediately and addressed by the principal. And I do think that in previous situations, if there's inappropriate words, we take care of it very quickly and get rid of it and address not only just the graffiti, but to address to our students how inappropriate this is. Because we do believe there's no place for hate in our schools. It's something that we very strongly believe in. Yeah, I mean, I would like to find it every day, but I'm not really sure that we can have the janitor go through every bathroom every day with a microscope looking for what words happen to be there. I think that, you know, they do a good job to go through the bathrooms and keep them clean and so forth, but, you know, if you find out anything else, Dr. Dolan, in reference to the conditions at the school, I think we're all, you know,
Absolutely.
concerned with that and will work, but as I said, there's only X number of hours, I think, to sit in every bathroom in the school and go through the walls. I mean, I'm hoping there's no graffiti. That's in general. So if it said something inappropriate, it would be fair.
You gotta come.
You have to
gotta
come
up
forward,
here.
because you can't. Sorry.
Alicia Gerby-Vierag, 220 Jefferson. I think the woman's point was that there are teachers on hall duty, and there's probably teachers may have a vague idea of who may be doing it, who may not be doing it. So are these teachers on hall duty, are they routinely just like taking a quick look at the bathroom again?
Well,
And
I
it's-
mean, I'm sure there's a gender issue in some cases, right? And
Well,
they're
sure,
not
sure.
following kids into the bathroom, but I think, I have to say that any suggestion that our students, that our staff has information about there being graffiti existing and not reporting it appropriately.
No, I don't think that's what she was saying, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that maybe we've had several incidents where children have done this year since I've been here. This is now like the third or fourth time I'm hearing of this. Maybe we need to have folks on hall duty doing this because we are in a politically charged time. We are, we're at a boiling point, right? So, again, teachers have contracts, and I understand, they wear several capes, not just one. But, again, the woman left in tears. So obviously, this is an important issue to her, and we all should take it seriously.
And I think it's an extremely important issue to all of us. I mean, it's more, the hate issue is very, very important to us. And, if there's ever, I would like Dr. Dolan to get back to us in the future, but I don't know of any situation where that you would see words that are inappropriate that are on the walls in the bathroom that, a teacher would have seen or a student wouldn't have seen or whatever, that we wouldn't.
But what I just feel is that you're trivializing what she said because you're suggesting that we're saying you need custodians take a microscope to find it. That's not the case.
well,
If someone's in the bathroom and they can see it, it's obviously noticeable.
No, sometimes honestly, because I get to know about each of them, they really are. They're between the grout. Now, I don't understand why that is. It's beyond my understanding truly, but we have had ones that are in between the grout. Again, so you would not notice it easily, but then somebody does see it. That's one of the stories. I don't quite understand why that is, but it has been the case. I had another thought and I lost it, unfortunately. But.
Again, Allison Simone, 114
You have to
Green.
talk in the mic, only because we're videotaping.
No
so
problem.
thank you.
Allison Simone, 114 Green. Again, the woman, she's clearly affected. Her child is clearly affected that he's taking photos and reporting to his mother. So that in itself, is an issue, and we do want to care as a community. But I think what she was looking here is for an answer is what are we doing? What is being done more than a morning announcement? We had an incident at Edison School. Bolton, I think he took care of that situation fantastically. He reported that there was an issue, did not give specifics, and I don't think that it was of any of our business because he did not want to add to the incident, which I agree with. And he had assemblies. He brought all those kids down, and they had assemblies that this is not appropriate behavior. The school is not going to tolerate it, and this is what the consequence is going to be if you get caught. And I think that's more of what she was looking for, is what is the consequence? What is the procedure here? What's going to be done other than, good morning, thank you for, coming to school today. Don't do this. And I think that that's why she's getting upset, is because all she got was a bulletin and an email, rather than this is what's getting done. It is not tolerated.
Right. I'm not sure that's an appropriate characterization of what happened at the high school. Matter of fact, I'm sure it's not. I know what Dr. Bolton sent out. I know what Mrs. Offenda sent out. So that's not, that isn't the case. And again, I think it is important that we did, on our own, go ahead to work with the Anti-Defamation League to work on this. We haven't forgotten it, nor have we cured it. And do we intend to continue to work hard on it? We really do.
You do.
We really
I think
do.
Bolton did I honestly think he did a fantastic job. I think that was the appropriate way to deal with it.
And the three principals of the secondary schools have been working as a team on all of this. All three of them work together on all of this. We spent time over the summer working on it, and we continue to do so.
I think that she was just looking for that assurance. So maybe sending something like that to the parents is something that may help her and possibly other parents rest a little bit easier.
Truthfully, the letter was almost exactly what Dr. Bolton sent.
Oh, I am not a part of the high school. I wouldn't have gotten that letter. I'm just going off of the fact that she ran out of the room crying.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, we have a relationship with her outside of this context, and Dr. Dolan and I will have an opportunity to speak to her tomorrow. Clearly, that was certainly not the reaction that I think we expected or that we intended to happen. So I appreciate everyone's concern for her, and we'll definitely follow up.
To your other point about consequences of what happens, just looking at our code of conduct here, vandalism of school property is anything from a Saturday detention to 10 days out of school suspension, depending on the severity and whether it's a first offense or.
And law enforcement is called in these incidents as
Mhm.
well, and they're involved.
Is that something, going back to that HIB that you were talking about earlier, that would be something that would be considered an incident
It's an other incident, is
or an other incident?
The specifics absolutely matter.
Oh, okay.
As to, is it targeted towards someone or some group of people versus it is, yeah, it depends, but it could vary. Sometimes it definitely is, and it was last year. Yeah.
And for it to be classified as a HIB, we have to know who did it.
Right.
Because we can't suspend an action. We have to.
Right.
Is there anything that can be done in the short term immediately tomorrow about what was specifically reported tonight about other offensive language presently on the walls
It's
in the
already
school?
taken care of, an email's already been sent to either the high school custodians check.
You're on it.
Okay.
Is it the school district's, oh, Randy Warren is 760 Boulevard. Is it the school district's policy to immediately clean up any kind of graffiti? And the reason I ask is just my own experience. My father was a high school principal for many years, and in a not a nice area, the school was immaculate all the time because he didn't let anything sit. As soon as it, the custodians would scan the entire school a couple times a day. Anytime something was found, taken care of on the spot. And that can help, I think, eliminate some of the
Agreed.
pain
Agreed.
and problems.
Agreed. Agreed.
To the extent that we can, we do.
Yeah. When it's carved into something, it's a little harder to repair than a Sharpie on a washable surface.
Right.
I'd also like to suggest that we work with the mayor about town graffiti. If you go into the bathrooms at Tamaulipas, for example, if you're there for your child's flag football, those bathrooms are also covered in graffiti with profanity and offensive things that I personally saw. So,
At Tamaulipas Park.
at Tamaulipas Park. So, we just, we have to make sure that this is addressed throughout the town, not just at the school level.
The town actually has an app. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I've seen it referenced on social media, and I know you can get to it from the town's website. Excuse me, and I think if you download the app, you can actually make an immediate report of what you see, where you see it. And I have seen reports of potholes, missing stop signs, that kind of a thing, being taken care of in a really quick fashion. So if you do see something like that on town property, there is a good mechanism, and it's a new mechanism that a lot of people wouldn't be aware of.
Right. And I'll also shoot out an email to Shelley, letting her know that this was discussed on the school level, and that maybe that it should be discussed on a town level. Once again, it's her decision, but,
Right.
I'll take your recommendation to just make her aware of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same students going to the parks that are doing this in the schools.
Could be, yep, could be, yep.
Any other questions?
Or comments?
Seeing nobody come forth to the podium, I ask the board to,
Make
if
a
they're
motion
ready,
to
we make a
adjourn?
motion to, I'm sorry,
Do we have private?
We do not.
No,
that
make a
we
motion to
are
adjourn.
adjourned. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, that's.